this is how I would manage event attendees for events inside of Monday.com. By the way, if you'd like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. As you can see here, I'm inside of my example Monday.com system. Now, event attendees and the process of managing event attendees is obviously very important, especially if people have paid to attend. So if you're doing workshops or 1 day, 3 day events or anything else, this video is going to explain how I would manage the event attendee process associated with particular events as well. So we're going to have an event attendees board and an events board. Now, I've done a separate video on how to manage events generally. This is going to be more specific to the attendees of those events. So what we're going to firstly go ahead and do is create a new board. This is going to be our events board. Okay. So this is where every single event that we create or that you're hosting is going to be managed. And you can manage an event in the same way that you project manage projects, right? And it's kind of the same principle. So board name events, we then need to select our privacy options. So main, private or shareable. If you want your events board to be private to only you and select individuals, you can do, or if you want to share it externally, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to leave it as private. And then in this particular instance, I'm just going to leave it as main. What am I talking about? And then what are we managing in this board? In this instance, we are managing events. And then I'm going to go ahead and press create board. So I'm not going to build this out too much. We'll create some basics on the events board as we go through. But what I want to focus on is the event attendees. So we're going to go ahead and create a new board. And we'll call this event attendees. Okay. So this is where we're going to manage every single attendee associated with a particular event. Okay. So we've got board name, event attendees, privacy options. Again, I'm just going to keep it main. And then we are managing on this board attendees. And I'm going to go ahead and press create board. So every attendee that attends an event is going to be associated with that particular event. But we're actually going to take this one step further as well. Okay. We're also going to have another board, and this is going to be our contacts board. This contacts board is going to be responsible for managing the relationship between an attendee and a contact. And I'll explain what that means in a moment. But again, privacy options main, and then we are going to be managing contacts on this particular board here today. So how does this work? Quite often, people will assume that a contact is related to a particular event. Okay, so let's just go ahead and set up our contacts board first while I walk you through this. So we have all of our contacts, and then contacts would be associated, or people would set it up in a way where contacts are directly associated with a particular event. The problem is it doesn't then capture key information relating to the attendance of that particular event. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up our contacts board. So we've got first name, we would then have last name, text, last name, we would have, let's say, email, we would have phone number, for example, and this is just relevant information about this particular contact record. Probably wouldn't have any files. We might have, let's say, a date created that automatically populates when a new contact record is created. Restrict column editing. I don't think we would have a status, and then you might, have someone assigned to being responsible for that particular contact, which you can manage in the person column. Then what I would probably look to do is just use the autofill with AI, and we would extract the first name from the contact name, and I'll just press save and apply. And then I'd do exactly the same for the last name as well. Saves us having to double enter in information. So I'd extract the last name from the contact name, and again, press save and apply. So if this guy's name is Nick Boardman, it would then automatically extract the first name and the last name, put it into the first name and last name columns using AI. By the way, that's just using AI tokens, credit tokens, so that you will get charged after a certain point, but that's just quite a useful feature. And then we can track any other key data points that we want associated with this particular contact record. So we might have a date column. This could be their date of birth, or birthday, for example, something like that. I don't know. It's entirely up to you what you're looking to track. DOB, for example. So the thing is, and this is where people go wrong, is when they're managing event attendees, they assume that the contact should be associated with the event. But on the event attendees board, there's going to be, like I said earlier, specific information such as how much they paid, the source that they came from, which event that they're attending, and other bits and pieces that is specific to the attendance record. So what we actually want to do is we want to associate a contact with an event attendee, and then an event attendee is associated with an event. And then we can mirror over data from the contacts onto the event attendees board so we can see the attendee information. But this will then allow us to track the number of event attendee records associated with the contacts record, thus giving us total spend associated with this particular contact and the count of events that they've actually attended. If you went straight from contacts to events, you wouldn't be able to track this information, such as their total spend. And we obviously want that information as its key information to see the performance of our contact records, average spend per contact. You could then get into like average gross profit per contact. Again, probably not going to cover that in this video. But this is why I wanted to make the video on event attendees. So we would have in the event attendees section, we would have attending as group number 1. We would then have attended, and then we would have did not attend. So these are the 3 status options, because we would assume that someone purchases a ticket, right? That means that they're going to be attending. And then they either did one of 2 things. They attended or they did not attend. So they were there or they weren't. And we want to be able to track that. So the groups represent the different stages of the process, and we would just make sure that we also have the status column do the same. So it did not attend, and then we would have attending as the default. And then we would go ahead and add the green option if it's going to let me, which doesn't appear to be. Oh dear, Monday.com, dear. We would have, what's going on? There we go, attended. There we go, cool. So I'll just get rid of that. If Friday mornings and Monday's not happy. Right, there we go. Attending, attended, did not attend. Cool. So these are different status options matched with the groupings. What we'll then go ahead and do is just automate that, and we say when status changes to attending, move item to group. Attending, create automation. And then again, when status changes to attended, move item to group attended, create automation. And then when status changes to did not attend, move item to group did not attend, and then create automation. Fantastic. So then what I probably want to do is just log when this particular record was created. So date created, I would then maybe restrict the column editing on here and then create an automation top right hand corner again, and just say when an item is created, we set the date created to today. Easy stuff, date created to today. So now what I want to go ahead and do is start populating key information relating to the event attendee. So as a good example, it would be, let's say, a numbers column. This would be the revenue for this particular ticket. Okay, so they purchase a ticket associated with a particular event. A contact record obviously purchased that ticket, so we need to connect the contact and we'll need to connect the event. But there's also going to be a monetary value associated with the attendance of this particular event. So for this particular event, let's say it cost me $800 for the ticket. And then we could go ahead and add another status column. And this is going to be, let's say, the source. So where did this person find out about this particular event? Or how did they come to purchase this? Because if it's a contact record, it might be that they've attended a previous event, or they might have come through, let's say, an Instagram funnel, TikTok, YouTube, I think I mentioned Instagram, but you get the idea, right? So source, we would have, let's say, YouTube. We might have Meta. We might have Google PPC. You might have Google Organic. There we go. You kind of get the idea, right? So I can delete that one, and then we've just got a few different source options. And then we can begin to track further information relating to the attendee specifically. So like attendance information for this particular event. Now, there might not be any additional information that you want to track, but just having the revenue and the source is enough to warrant this setup that we have here. So then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to connect our attendees board to our contacts board. So we've got a contact or our connection board. We're going to select the contacts board that we're connecting to and just make sure we press create a two-way connection. So then this is going to be a singular, not a plural. And what I would do is just go 3 dotted button and then customize and then untick allow linking to multiple items. So then we've got the contact record associated with the event attendee. Now, I know this sounds really confusing. The event attendee and the contact are the same person, but there might be multiple attendances by the same contact, and we want to be able to track that. So we will go ahead and connect Nick Boardman to, let's say, both of these, for example. And then we've got $600 there. And then we can see, let's say he didn't attend that, but he did pay for it. And then let's say he did attend that as well. So now we'll be able to see both of the attendance or the tickets purchased, essentially is what we're talking about here, associated with this particular contact record and his total spend as well. And also we could look at the source that he's come from. So if I then go back to my contacts board, and because we pressed create a two-way connection, I will be able to see all of the event attendances or purchases associated with this particular contact record. What I can then go ahead and do is I can then mirror over data from the event attendees board onto the contacts board. So I can go ahead, add a mirror column, connect the mirror column to the connection column, and then I can mirror over the revenue for this particular contact. So this would be contact revenue. So now I can see that Nick Boardman has spent $1,400 on events, and we'll be able to see like history. We could click in, see what he actually spent that money on. We could see where he came from as well. So if we wanted to add another mirror column, we could go ahead and do so. We could connect the event attendance to, let's say, the source. So now I can see attendance event attendance source. There we go. I almost spelt it as in sauce, as in cooking sauce then. I'm having a bit of a slow morning. So then we'd be able to see that 50% came from Meta, 50% came from YouTube. Obviously, you would have like repeat business, so you can track that as well. And then also what we can look at, and this is another crucial data point, is the attendance associated with this particular contact record. So again, we create another mirror column, connect the mirror column to the connection column, and then we want to mirror over the status, and this will be the event status or attendance. Yeah, I guess it would literally just be attendance if I can spell it. There we go. So now I can see that he's attended 50% and also did not attend 50% of all of the events that he had purchased. So now I have data associated with that particular contact record. Now imagine I have another one. Let's call this guy Tim Cook, original name. And then we will associate, let's say, Tim with this particular event attendee record and this one here, and let's say the revenue for this one was 300, and then he paid 1,500 for this, and then the source YouTube again, and let's just say he attended this one and then did not attend. So now I can see that Tim has also attended 2 events, or will be, or is associated to event attendee records. He spent 1,800 total with us. Both of the purchases have come from YouTube. One he's attended and one's upcoming. So then what I could do, just hypothetically, is I could filter and I could say, show me the event attendance where the status is equal to, or not the event attendance source, I'd say like the attendance is equal to attending. So now it's showing me all of my contact records that have an upcoming event with us. Again, how useful this is for you. Obviously, you can chop and change and design this however you want, but I think this is really helpful to be able to see this information and filter it. And this is why we have the contacts that connect to the event attendees, and then the event attendees connect to the events board. That's exactly why I wanted to make the video today. So then on the event attendees board, obviously we've got the setup that we need, or the basic information, the very, very basic information. What we can then look at doing is automatically populating different things that need to happen when a new event attendee is created. So quite often when an attendee is created, they've purchased something, we need to set them up on different systems. Maybe we need to send them like a package and make sure that they've got the event details and everything else. So what we can then go ahead and do is automate using the automation feature in Monday. And then we can go ahead and create automation, and we can say when item is created, then we can go ahead and create sub items. So these sub items will automatically populate tasks in relation to the parent item. Now, before we go ahead and do that, I'm just going to introduce you to sub items. It just occurred to me that you might not even know what a sub item is. So if you hover over the item on the far left hand side here, you'll see this faint arrow. Now, this is where you can essentially create tasks associated with the parent item. Now, sub items function in exactly the same way as the parent item, in the sense that you can have different data points, you can have as many different columns as you want, and then you'd obviously have your status option as well. So let's just say, hypothetically, this is to do, doing, and then done. Different stages of our tasks relating to this particular event attendee. So to do, doing, done. We then have, let's say, a due date. So we can go ahead and enter that in here. 3-dotted button. We can also set this as a deadline. So you'll notice that a lot of the features are exactly the same here. So if I then go ahead and say this is on the 12th and then change the status, that's what setting the due date as a deadline date does. It essentially tells Monday.com that the owner status and due date are all related, and this is essentially a task. And then we can add additional information. Let's say a status, and this is, let's say, the task type. And then we could also add, let's say, a long text column, which is the task description, just hypothetically. Description. Hit enter. So then within the task type, we can have different options. So task type 1, task type 2, task type 3. So this might be a finance task. This might be a I don't know, marketing task. This might be I don't know. I'm struggling with ideas this morning. So let's leave it at that. Let's just say admin, for example. So admin, and then I'll just delete the green option here. So admin, finance, marketing tasks. So you can see again, hopefully this is clearly explaining why you need an event attendee record relating to every single event that someone has purchased, because you couldn't then manage all of the sub items and the tasks associated with an attendee on the contact. So if you just went direct from contacts to events, it just wouldn't make sense, because it's a process in of itself for every single attendance, irrespective of whether it's the same contact or not. So now we've set up our task management for each of our attendees. What a common thing to do is just mirror up, or what's called show summary on parent item, the status of all the sub items associated with the parent task. So then you'd be able to see the sub item status, which is essentially an indicator of how many of the sub items have been done. So let's say example number 2, hit enter. This is obviously to do. You can see how this updates. The nice thing about this is quite often you won't have all of your sub item kind of like the group open. It will be collapsed, but it's easy to just glance at what's still to do and what is done. So then going back to my point earlier where I jumped the gun about creating automations, if we go to automate top right hand corner and create a new automation, we can say when item is created, then we can go ahead and create sub items. These sub items are the various tasks associated with this particular event attendee that need to be done in order to get the event attendee ready for the event. So for example, we could say send package. What that actually means, I'm not entirely sure. I could then assign that to myself. I select the task type as, let's say, marketing. So it might be like a nice marketing package. I could then create another sub item. This sub item could be finance. So just confirm payment received. If I spell that correctly, there we go. And then the owner could be, let's say, Alex in this instance. And then this is a finance department task type, or task type is finance. And then I can just keep going and adding different sub items to the automation here. So I could say also create ticket, create event ticket / add to event system. Now that sort of stuff could be integrated with Monday, but we're not getting that technical. And then that would be an admin task, and then let's just say that's assigned to me as well. Create automation. Fantastic. So every time a new event attendee record is created, there are going to be a series of tasks that automatically populate. So I'm going to call this example event attendee, hit enter, and we will just wait for that to automatically populate. As you can see here, it is beginning to do so, assigning the different tasks to various different people inside of the business. So also what you would do is typically an event attendee record would be created from your CRM system. when the status of the deal is, because it is a deal, it's a sale, is equal to closed won. It will create a new example event attendee on here. What I would also do is run an automation to find a contact record matching either the email or the phone number of the contact that has just been sold. If it does exist, then we automatically create an event attendee and then automatically link the contact to the contact record. Or if it doesn't, then we create a contact and then create the event attendee and then also just automatically link it as well. So we've then got our event attendee. We've got, let's just say this is associated with myself as well. The revenue would pull over from the CRM system. Let's say this was a $5,000 event. And then we can work through getting all of the different tasks done in preparation for this particular event. So event attendees, contacts. Now let's just look at events and how event attendees communicate, or the relationship between events and event attendees. Obviously, this is very rudimentary. I've done another video on this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we would have upcoming events. We'd probably have active events as our different stages of this particular process. We'd have completed events, and then you might have cancelled events, unfortunately. As I'm sure you know, that does happen. And then I'll just change the colors to be relevant for the different stages, I guess. Cancelled, probably going to be in red there. And then just select the status options to match, or set up the status options to match the grouping. So upcoming, we would then have active. Oh, Monday. Every time in this status column, there is a glitch, and I'll whinge about it every single time in every single video. We would then have active. We use the red for cancelled, and then we would have completed. There we go. So upcoming, active, completed, cancelled. Change that to the purple. Again, I'm not going to automate this sort of stuff. Again, you just go to the automate top right hand corner. When status changes to X, move to Y, blah, 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 blah. And then we might have event start date, which is the date column, or you could use a timeline column. It's entirely up to you. And then you'd obviously have, let's say, I don't know, this is where you would manage the event itself and all of the project management associated with the event. Again, watch the other video on my channel if you want to learn more about that. But we'd have, let's say, event files, and then you'd have additional information about the event itself and how you're managing the event. But the important thing to note here is every single event attendee needs to be associated with an event record. Now, the way I would do this is I would have a event reference number. So again, broken, thanks Monday. Event reference number. So I would call this event ref dot, hit enter, and then I would restrict the column editing. Now this can be automatically populated, or it could be manually entered by the person that's creating the events. Let's just imagine 54321 for this particular event reference. Every single person that purchases a ticket, there should be an event reference associated with them. So if you're managing this inside of your CRM system, there needs to be a column or a field where the sales team can put the event reference number, so you know which event you're selling this particular attendee onto. And then we would have a reference number on here. So again, it should be a text column, and we would call this event reference dot. Again, restrict the column editing. So when the status of the sale is equal to close one, creates the event attendee record, pulling over the event reference number. And then what we need to do is connect the event attendees board to the events board. So we go ahead, press the plus button, and use a connect boards column to connect the attendee to the event. So we go ahead, select the events board, and just press create a two-way connection. So now we're able to see the event associated with this particular attendee. Again, go to customize and just unselect allow linking to multiple items, because there's only ever going to be one event associated with an attendee. So you can see now we've got contacts to events, and then event attendees to events, or contacts to event attendees, and then event attendees to events. And you would connect whichever event this particular attendee is associated with. Again, multiple contacts. One contact could attend multiple events, and then that would be associated, and then it will obviously be, what I'm trying to say is, multiple event attendees associated with a particular event as well. So you've then got on the events board, you can see how that connection is pulled through because we selected create a two-way connection, and then we can see all of the event attendees associated with this particular event. Now you can then automatically connect an event attendee to an event with the unique reference number via an automation inside of monday.com. But if I then go ahead and just associate all of these event attendees with the same event here, we'll be able to pull over that information on the events board, and you can see all of the attendees associated with this particular event. And that's when you would probably then begin to, obviously you need to set up the events board itself. But that is how I would set up event attendees and manage event attendees inside of Monday.com. The key distinction here, and where a lot of people go wrong, is just using or assuming that contacts can be associated with events. They can't, because there is an event attendee process associated with every single event attendee, irrespective if they've purchased before. We also have their purchase history. We know what they're associated with. I can now see one, Nick Boardman's attended one. He did not attend one. He's attending one, so one upcoming, and I can see his contact revenue. Hopefully this video has been helpful, giving you a little bit of insight into how I would go through the event attendance management process and like making sure that event attendees get set up and everything else. Especially if you are running a lot of events and there's a lot that needs to be done for each attendee to make sure that they're good to go for that event. If you would like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, do things like this or anything else, more complicated, less complicated, hopefully, check out the link in the description below. Book a call with me. We would absolutely love to help. If you've got any questions, concerns, queries, or just want to have a chat, drop a comment in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. And if it's a good question, I will make a video answering your question. Anyway, thank you ever so much for taking the time. Hopefully this has been a good introduction to event attendee management within Monday.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.